posted a photograph of Grove Police Chief and serial sexual predator Mark Titties Morris, representing the city of Grove with his city-issued gun and city-issued badge, immobilizing a young lady while in her panties and bra. I made the point that this type of reckless degradation of women is deeply ingrained in Delaware County law enforcement and has led to many instances of rape, torture, and sexual humiliation of our girls and women. The fact that Grove Police Chief Titties Morris was showing his law enforcement credentials to this poor woman in a city where he had no jurisdiction is referred to as acting under color of law, and leads one to wonder why he would commit that crime. Was it to coerce the young lady into posing for a photograph in her underwear so that Chief Morris could circulate it in the Delaware County law enforcement community? Grove Fire Chief Mike Reed came out shortly after in what I thought was a public post and called me an idiot. But the only reason Chief Reed gave to the citizen on why he thought I was an idiot, or how I, quote, discredit myself, unquote, but the only reason Chief Reed gave to the citizen on why he thought I was an idiot or how I discredit myself is that I, quote, forgot to mention, unquote, that Police Chief Titties Morris was in Hooters or Twin Peaks when he was posing in photographs with a woman in her bra and panties, flashing his law enforcement credentials. Of course, I didn't forget to mention that because that whether or not that is true, it is irrelevant, other than the jurisdictional issue that makes Titties' behavior illegal, specifically acting under the color of law. Fire Chief Reed continues, quote, probably a bad decision on Chief Morris's behalf, but he was probably at a conference or training, unquote, as though Chief Morris being on official business somehow made it okay. Chief Morris is in another town representing the city of Grove, brazenly breaking the law while showing his badge. And this is why we have the rape culture so prevalent in Delaware County law enforcement. Fire Chief Reed, a former Delaware County deputy, doesn't even know that Police Chief Titties Morris's behavior is unethical and, what is worse, potentially and very probably illegal. If he wasn't in Grove, he was not in his jurisdiction, and he was acting under the color of law, which is actionable. I later learned that the post was actually in a private Facebook message. But here's the problem. At any rate, when Chief Reed gave his opinion to this citizen that I was an idiot, he was giving his opinion as a public official. He had no reasonable expectation of privacy. His message was not to a friend in the sense he knew her as a person or had actually met her outside the line of duty. Because Fire Chief Reed is a public official, lots of people want to be Facebook friends with him, just like lots of people want to be my Facebook friend. The difference is, the people who want to be friends with Chief Reed, who don't know him in real life, want to be his friend because of his job, his position as a public official. They don't PM him with questions about fighting fires. Whereas thousands, not the thousands, not every one of the thousands, but thousands of people I don't know in person want to be my Facebook friend, not because of my job, but because of the credibility I have established exposing the same Delaware County corruption that Chief Reed claims to be amazed about so many people believing. Or maybe Chief Reed isn't really amazed at all, but he's afraid I will uncover some egregious behavior in his past, so he feels the need to discredit me by calling me names. Remember, after admitting that Grove Police Chief Titties Morris's behavior was inappropriate, Chief Reed stated that he, Reed, would not put himself in that situation. Not because it was wrong. Chief Reed specified that he would not put himself in that situation because of this very situation. This very situation being getting caught and exposed. If Reed's statements regarding Grove Police Chief Titties Morris's disgusting and potentially illegal behavior are any indication, Chief Reed is either incredibly ignorant regarding ethics and law, or he is defending Morris as a friend, or he has engaged in inappropriate conduct himself, or a combination of these things. Chief Reed, if you're going to call Titties Morris your friend, then you need to accept what comes with that, and when it does come, you need to react as a professional. Titties' conduct by flashing his badge in a jurisdiction he had no authority was illegal. Having his picture taken groping a woman in panties and underwear so hard that the folds of her flesh bunched up under his hand, and she is a hard body, it was not fat, he is grasping her very hard, while displaying his badge, was unethical. Titties' conduct was not probably a bad decision on Chief Morris's behalf, as Fire Chief Reed put it. Instead of displaying his firearm and badge for a photograph while groping this young lady in panties and bra, what if Titties displayed the badge and put the gun in her back and marched her to a back room and raped her? Does Fire Chief Reed feel like that would just qualify as probably a bad decision? When Delaware County law enforcement officers engaged in the mass rape of jailed citizens, does Fire Chief Morris feel that that is just probably a bad decision? At any rate, when a citizen asked Grove Fire Chief Reed for his official position on what he thought about my videos, his answer, were he a professional, or were he someone who understood even the very basics of constitutional or state law, or how easy his answer could get the city of Grove another lawsuit, should have answered, what Mr. Turlington is saying is legal, and he has the right to say whatever he wants to say, and I support his right to say it. It isn't up to me as a public official, much less a fire chief, to comment on Mr. Turlington's videos or anything else about Mr. Turlington. Of course, a man who doesn't understand the legal problems and apparently doesn't understand the ethical problems of a police chief flashing his law enforcement credentials while having his photograph taken groping a woman in her panties and bra in a place that, according to Chief Reed, that police chief has no jurisdiction. A man who doesn't understand this simple matter of jurisdiction, such as Grove Fire Chief and former Delaware County Deputy Chief Reed, cannot be expected to understand the potential legal liability created for the city that employs him by calling citizens names or anything else to begin with. There are coward cops. There are a lot of coward cops. Not percentage-wise, and less so with rural than city cops, but there are a lot. It is much more difficult to be a coward firefighter, but they exist as well, although in much smaller numbers. Keep in mind, unlike a soldier, a firefighter has the right to refuse to enter any situation he deems too dangerous. Chief Reed was not a coward cop when he was a Delaware County deputy, and he is not a coward firefighter. He may be really unprofessional and not very intelligent, but cowardice is one thing Chief Reed has not been accused of. And it is because of Chief Reed's physical toughness that I treated him differently than I treat weak men like Winston Backdoor Connor, or shorter, softer Gale Wells, or Titties Morris, or any of those other public servants who have caused so much damage to our community. When I made Delco video number 13, I went so far as to thank Chief Reed for his public service as a first responder after he referred to me as an idiot. To be specific, I treated Chief Reed differently because I respected his physical toughness, not because I feared it. In other words, Chief Reed, beating your ass would not be like beating up a woman, as in the case with Titties Morris or so many other Delaware County law enforcement officers who need it. We live in a very small community, Chief Reed, and I will see you in public, and when I do, call me names to my face and see what happens.
Well, we can't buy liquor, so we make speed. We can't buy beer, we grow weed. We do our best to avoid the law in the dry counties of Arkansas.